Resuming the recording. And hello. Just want to say thank you and welcome. My name is Cherie Merrill, and I am the Associate Director in the Study Abroad and Global Engagement Office in the Extension and International Programs larger department.
And I am Jack Hobson. I'm the Senior Director of the Global Titan Center, which is also in Extension and International Programs. And the units that make up the Global Titan Center are the SAGE office, as Cherie Merrill mentioned, Study Abroad and Global Engagement, along with International Students and Scholars Services, and essentially the incoming and the outgoing of students. Thank you so much for being with us today.
So just as the title of the presentation indicates, we're here just to talk about the state of international education, and what a lot of people are wondering is what's going on with it, where are we, what is it even around anymore? And so we're happy to announce it is alive and well, but there have been some changes. People are right to be curious. So we just kind of want to go through what's happened, what is happening now, and what we're looking forward to in the future. So with that, I'll just go ahead and get started. So let me see if I click on the screen. There we go. So what happened? So in the last year, we know what has happened with the pandemic, but how it affected our campus and our international programming was actually, pretty similar across the board for other institutions and a lot of our partners, non-education institutions, and also partner providers, as well as colleges and universities. So we had a recall. It kind of started as a slow trickle around, I think conversations probably started in mid to late February, with recalls happening early March with, I think we started with one country, then it became two, and then it was this entire region, and then it was like, just bring everybody back. And so we had our staff working with risk management and other campus folks to bring people back, try to bring them back safely, make accommodations for people coming back to unique situations. We had students who had elderly parents, for example, or we had students who were housing insecure, things of that nature that we had to help students navigate. Then we had the travel suspension, which as I would say most folks know, has now been extended through the end of July 2021. And so that pretty much made the decision for us that our programs, at least that required travel outbound, would not be happening through the summer. So effectively, since last spring, we have not had any outbound study abroad students doing our regular faculty-led programs or any programs with our partners, at least anything that we are processing through our internal application process. And so, yeah, we do have a suite of our own programs that are led by faculty, semester, winter, spring break, fall break, summer. And so it was hard, after all the hard work faculty and staff had put into it, but they were also canceled as a result. So that's what happened. But looking forward to right now, we do have some global engagement opportunities that have been in the works since the summer, this past summer, that we've been working on, that we want to talk a little bit about today. And we also, with as much optimism as possible, we are planning for resuming those programs that had been canceled, resuming working with our partners and exchange and direct enroll and third-party providers, so that students can, helping to prepare so that students, when it is available, can participate in those semester and year-long programs as well. In addition to our faculty-led programs, we're starting to get in the headspace of now resuming those planning and development cycles for traditional study abroad, as well as the new types of programs that are underway. So just to give us a quick introduction, I'm not sure how familiar you are with our existing CSUF programming. I have to move my windows, my face is blocking the words. We have faculty-led study abroad. These are programs which faculty leaders, one or more, depending on the size of the group and the inclination of the faculty members, will take a group of students abroad outside of the US or one of its territories. For example, I'm trying to give an example. One of the longstanding faculty-led programs is a program to South Africa that is out of the College of HNSS. These programs, because they're outside of the United States, there is a requirement that they have an international health insurance coverage for each participant, student, faculty, staff, whoever is participating under the CSUF umbrella, versus faculty-led study away, which has our students, again, being led by a CSUF professor or staff member, and can also be the case. It's conducted within the US and its territory. So we have, for example, programs that go to Puerto Rico. And also here in California, we have a group of students that goes up to Sacramento or to the Mojave Desert. So we also have one that may one day make the transition, but it goes all the way to the US-Mexico border, and they spend a full intensive week there, but they never actually cross over, but they do interact with Mexican authorities and Mexican organizations during that time. So it's an interesting composition for that class. Again, just have to reiterate, this type of programming is currently suspended through July 31st of this year. We are still awaiting advice about when those types of programs will be able to resume. So even though travel is suspended just through July, we haven't been technically given the green light that, oh yeah, we can go ahead and do, let's plan for fall break. We are not, we're not in that position, and we have to be pretty transparent about that. Oops. Okay. So some other things to think about with the mobile programming is that the administrative process along with it can be fairly detailed. So we ask that faculty and staff who are interested in this type of program have approval from their dean, which involves, usually approaching their chair first to kind of get some insight about what the program is. Give some insight what the program being proposed is about. Is it fulfilling a need for the department? And we have documents that help faculty members sort of outline all of the different questions that the department might be interested in knowing or in asking to kind of, in a way, justify a new course. It's a different story if you're taking on an existing program that is already approved with the college. And then there's an approval process with the dean's office. This approval, it really depends on the college you belong to. It can take a long time. It could be a fairly short review and approval process. And once you have that green light to move forward, then you can start working on the rest of the planning and approval process. We do advise, I'm not going to get into the super nitty gritty of it because we have a separate workshop for that, which covers it, from A to Z, what's involved in that process. But we do advise that you should allow yourselves at least 12 to 18 months lead time for, from approval to departure, to really give yourselves and give the students sufficient time to prepare for the experience. One thing I will get into detail about, a little bit of detail, not super detailed, but is there's a budget approval process that before really anything can move forward, a budget does need to be in place and approved before recruitment can begin. So the budget approval process is two-tiered. First, it must go through your own department in college, and then it needs to go through the extension and international programs review and approval. Our budget manager looks at it, she asks any questions, and if it's something we can't answer on your behalf, we will come back to you and ask those questions. But that budget approval is key. So we like to make sure that's something that we're helping the faculty and staff navigate if they have questions about how to cost out a program or how to choose a provider so that they can have the elements they need to build a budget. We're there for reference. We do have, I mentioned that there's a more detailed workshop and much more detailed resources for faculty and staff on our website. And there's a resources page at the end of this presentation that will list all of those links where you can find all of that information. And also my email address if you need to come to us with your interest and say, I want to do this, help me get started. Our role in this process is to provide guidance about the process. We also work with the administrative departments that support the faculty on the processes related to, getting the approvals you need, getting that budget put together, finding a partner that can support your program, if which is kind of the preferred route. We help in the risk management area with registering all of your participants in the required insurance if it's an international program. We do work really closely with you and with your administrative department to support the faculty and the students in these programs. We process your students' applications. We help build the applications to your specifications. So yeah, there's a lot that we do support, and then we're kind of always there just as a resource as well. I think that's it for now.
All right, so I think this is now transitioning to what can we do today? Because obviously none of us are going to go to LAX either ourselves or take our students to LAX anytime soon. Although Cherie does make a good point that, it seems like, the fact that we can't do faculty-led study abroad today, the timeline for planning actually really is now. Winter session 2022, if I were to speculate, is probably kind of maybe the earliest possible mobility. But that's just, again, me doing my guesswork based on where we're at. And it's our hope that obviously fall is as normal as possible. But in terms of what can be done now and the pivot that the Study Abroad and Global Engagement Office has made is, so traditionally Study Abroad was just the name of the office, and we added the global engagement because the COVID-19 pandemic, along with larger national conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, kind of coincided to push for some significant change in the way in which mobility offices envision themselves and apply their resources. So we have long recognized that traditional mobility for students was limited in many ways, that there were access challenges for students across the board. Some of those being money, some of those being seeing myself doing this, my family seeing me doing this, work, life obligations, the complexity of I can't just quit my job. I'm involved in elder care or child care in the household, any one of a number of things. So we recognize that traditional mobility has its limitations and that virtual global engagement, which is something I'm calling VGE, it's totally coined by me. If you'd like to write a paper on this topic, I'd be more than happy to. We probably could get it published if we want to brand something. Virtual global engagement is something that is where the entire field has pivoted. And I don't envision that this goes away. I think virtual global engagement as a facet of study abroad offices is something that will always be there. Cherie, could you go back one slide? There we go. Thank you. So it is fundamentally, focused on weaving in virtual experiences either into an entirely online class or an in-person class or a hybrid class. I think it's a way in which you can weave in a virtual experience, virtual global engagement experience into an online class and make an online class exceptionally more dimensional. And some of the attributes, if you're kind of trying to grasp what this includes, is that yes, it is remote, it is interactive and collaborative though. And so what we're not talking about is a well-crafted series of YouTube videos that gets woven into the class and that we watch them and then we react to them. This is more an issue of there's an interactive and a collaborative piece that involves folks from abroad. And that can be something that is as simple as you're doing a class that involves something like food and culture, and that a provider that we work with may be able to offer kind of an interactive online cooking class, something as simple as making pasta. And we have courses on food and culture. It could be lectures from public health professionals and going and visiting public health sites in 2 or 3 different countries. One of the other benefits that I like about this that traditional mobility hampers is multi-site access. You know, there's so many faculty that would love to design a class that is a comparison course. We want to look at public health in Latin America, but we want to compare facilities in Mexico, in Peru, and in the Dominican Republic. Well, there's no way that that price point would ever reach feasibility for students to be able to physically go and do this. But virtual mobility can actually help make that happen. There is also the potential of it being structured with little to no cost, depending on how it's mapped out and how it's funded. We can go into that in a little bit, but the biggest point that I like about this for the student access and the faculty flexibility is that a student could decide, I'm going to enroll in my 12 units during the fall, and I'm going to take one of the classes will have a virtual global engagement component to it. And fundamentally, if structured correctly, they're getting a high impact practice. They're having perspectives of the world offered to them in a way that does not necessarily blow up their lives, such that a traditional semester course, a semester study abroad might do. Additionally, for faculty, many faculty have some of the same constraints that students have in terms of blowing up their own lives. That faculty, it is very difficult for faculty to be able to say, yeah, I can actually shut down my life for a month and take a group of students and go do a thing. Or maybe they'll do that once every 2 or 3 years. But the idea of doing that all the time, that's a challenge for faculty as well. So, and we don't view these virtual global engagement experiences as zero sum. We're not doing these in lieu of the faculty-led study abroad or other study abroad, but I see these as highly collaborative and complementary to the suite of offerings. And that in theory, what you might have is a student do a virtual global engagement experience in 1 or 2 classes throughout their lower division courses, and then norming the international and global perspectives in an academic setting such that by junior, senior year, the leap to doing a study abroad program is smaller. It seems more normal because I've done these other things and I want to do a physical version of what we've done in a virtual version. And like I've said, if structured correctly, they're all high impact practices and have all the benefits of those particular experiences in terms of retention and the things that we know that high impact practices create. Cherie, could you move to the next slide? Thank you. So there's a few types of VGE, and what we'll talk about today are the virtual global engagement from the faculty-led standpoint and COIL. There are other types that are out there that, you know, we have global partners right now that are offering virtual international internships. So students can weave in a virtual international internship while they are taking 12, 14 units of courses here. That's not going to go away. And that some of our partner universities are also offering a virtual class that gets woven in. Those count as well. But for our purposes today, from the Cal State Fullerton faculty perspective, there's really 2 types, which is virtual faculty led. So that's where I teach a class on I'm going to steal from one of my colleagues, Sarah Grant. I teach a class on coffee and trade in Vietnam, and I'm interested in the coffee industry in Vietnam. And I work with a third-party provider to craft virtual experiences for me to weave into my winter session class. We're here physically, either in an online class or physically on campus, and that the provider can add in as many interactive experiences as we want. It could be lectures by trade officials. It could be going and physically visiting a coffee plantation. It could be going and having interactive meetings with those that work in the coffee industry. So it's functionally like a site visit that you would do, but instead of going all the way to Vietnam and paying this amount, the provider would charge a much smaller amount. Now, the funding of that we'll come back to, because that is one of the questions we have is if a student is being charged traditional tuition and then there's a modest program fee, how much will students pay for a virtual experience? Some of that's unknown in terms of kind of student threshold, but the provider will charge a small margin. And these are the same providers with whom we've worked for years in traditional study abroad. So these are international education providers that, as you can see, it can be as simple as $300 to $1,200 fees. They will customize the program content. They will do a lot of the administrative support so that the faculty member, she or he, just teaches the class. And if there's a tech support piece, if you want them to set up conversation boards, if you want to done in Canvas, if you want it just done in Zoom, it can be as kind of fleshed out as you like. And if you have contacts that you want to work with, they can weave in your contacts or they can help find you those contacts. Moving next to the next slide, we'll talk about COIL slightly. COIL is slightly different, and that is in that it is still in a virtual platform, but it is fundamentally faculty to faculty collaboration. So that is the C in COIL is collaborative online international learning. And this is where, let's say, I'm teaching a class on environmental sustainability. And I'm at Cal State Fullerton, and Cherie Merrill, my colleague, is at a university in the UK. And she's teaching a class on tourism and trade. So that you can see that the fields don't actually have to be overlapped really enormously. And that maybe what we do is we have collaborative projects where students that are in the international trade or the international travel class and the environmental sustainability class are working on a particular project together. So this too does not necessarily blow up a syllabus. This really could be as simple as a single project at the middle or at the end where the two faculty members collaborate on this is what we want for this learning outcome. It could be done in message boards. It could be done in Zoom. We've even seen models where it's done on WhatsApp so that in areas where internet access is a challenge. And so if you're wanting to do a collaborative online international learning course in the developing world, where students might not have the same technological access, internet, computers, etc. Almost everyone has access to WhatsApp. And so you can get really, really creative there. And it's also, I think, a great opportunity for research, for faculty to have research that's a product of this. It's our role is really fundamentally playing the role of the matchmaker. So if a faculty member comes to us and says, look, my field is art history. I really am interested in muralism in Latin America and the culture of murals in Latin America, but I just don't know a soul. We can help find you someone. And then in reverse, we have partner universities that contact us quite actually 3 or 4 times a week saying, we've got a faculty member in economics. We've got a faculty member in computer science wanting to do a COIL project. And so the degree to which you weave in a global perspective into the COIL learning really is up to the faculty member. So it could be something about intercultural perspectives on something like travel and trade and the environment, or it could be something very specific to the field, as in just we're actually going to work on a particular project on computer science, and that the global learning perspective is actually kind of more deeply embedded and less obvious. In this case, really there fundamentally is no fee. This is something that is just a collaborative project that the two faculty members work on. The previous one, as I mentioned, in the virtual global engagement for the faculty-led, using a provider, there will be a fee. We're in the process of working through ASI to determine if IRA funds will be available for these types of projects. Tentatively, they have agreed to do this, and that we're hoping to have some long-term clarity that this expanded model of global learning is just as valuable as traditional faculty mobility, and that faculty can be awarded grants to cover the cost for this, so that for students, it would be cost neutral. It's, again, very new, very fresh, but something that is exciting in order to be able to provide more opportunities for more students and our faculty. I think that might be the last slide, Cherie.
Yes.
We have some resources here.
Yeah, so this resources page we just have a new website up that basically kind of outlines what we've gone through. And you can go back to that page at your leisure to review some of the information there. What we also have is a link here for those traditional travel study abroad or study away programs, and the planning tools that provide the process information as well as some documents. One is a program proposal document that it's just a template. It's not a university mandated document, but it's helpful if your department or college doesn't have its own. Some colleges do, but if yours does not, you're welcome to use this document as a guide. And then it also includes a budget template that you can use to give you an idea of all the kinds of line items that go into the budget planning process and what gets approved, et cetera, et cetera. Another really helpful resource here, Forum on Education Abroad is the sort of think organization that that establishes the best practices for the field of international education. And so they have some things to say about what are the best practices for leading a short-term program abroad, and as well as how to conduct, the guidelines for conducting effective VGEs. So, we'd like for you to have that information as well if you'll find it useful, and provide some background and some insight into how we approach the different types of programming we support. So we hope those resources will be helpful. And at this time, just want to say thank you again for making the time to spend with us during your lunch hour. At this time, if you have any questions or just comments about the information.
And we can also, if we want to keep recording, or we can stop the recording, that's fine.
Oh, true.
Yeah, let's go ahead and stop the recording.
Yeah.